Otherwise it'll go, right? So we've got 1 hour, right?
I think so, yeah.
Rob will keep an eye on the time and he'll kind of give you a signal, but then because you're the one who'll be driving, you'll need to just click that.
Yeah.
So, TTFN.
Yeah.
So we should probably try to round up around 10 minutes before, something like that.
I think that's safe. Yeah.
And then that'll just give us, and then if we actually run out of things to say, which I doubt we will, we can just go to a last question or something like that, can't we?
Yeah. I think you'll be surprised how few questions you can fit in.
No, I know that. Yeah.
So maybe even just sort of 4 or 5 minutes before the engine, you can do a little kind of a little roundup. I think Amber and Angela basically went right to the end.
They went over.
They went over, and that's when our sound went.
Yeah,
it was unfortunate actually.
Okay, so
Because
we
we really need to pay attention to that, because otherwise it just falls to pieces.
Yeah.
Well, Rob or Tom, who will be next to you here, will keep an eye on the time, and we'll say sort of 5 minutes.
So just before you click on it, Anna, I guess it's worth saying. So if someone sees a link on like Twitter or Facebook and they click it, it'll go to that Watch on YouTube page.
Okay.
And that's how they'll see it. So people could comment beneath the video, trying to ask a question. So I guess one of us.
Well, I think we've kind of decided to try and limit it this time to those 3 channels. So we're not going to be looking at that.
Okay.
So we'll just be looking at the Twitter or the step within the platform.
Okay, that's fine.
So we may miss some questions, but we're not going to be able to answer all questions.
That's fine.
Anyway.
But I guess people might be saying, "Why is my question not being answered?" But that's if we just accept that's that.
It's a good thing to note.
I think we might have even disabled the comments.
Yeah, that's probably better.
That would be better, because I think that's going to be, otherwise it's
disable
going to
them,
be distracting.
Yeah.
And so then to actually ask questions, you click on the thing where it says "Be part of the conversation."
What's that?
So just as a kind of viewer at home.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then that launches it inside Google Plus.
Ah, fantastic.
But because I've got a Google Plus account, it lets me do that. Whereas if you were a viewer without a Google Plus account, it would kind of then, want you to kind of sign up and do that process.
Right.
So that's kind of why watching on YouTube is like easier for a lot of people.
Yeah.
How do I get the Q&A?
And again, it's really well hidden. So at the top right, there's this kind of collection of dots.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Oh,
Q&A there.
I'd never figure that out.
Are you watching this, Carly? Just so I can see, yeah.
Yeah, me and Alex had a bit of fun earlier trying to find the Q&A app because it wasn't obvious.
Right.
Would you mind, Tom, going through this and just doing us a bunch of screenshots and just having it as a little how-to guide?
Yeah, because
that's
there's
fine.
another one.
In the heat of the moment.
Yeah. I took a screenshot of those dots earlier because I was like,
just
even just like this as well.
yeah, start thing, that's fine.
That would be cool.
So people can't comment this time then at all. They can just submit a question.
Yeah.
Good.
Anna's at home, type in a question, so you would be kind of talking normally.
Okay.
Or answering your pre-prepared questions.
Yeah. And then
And
we'll wait
there's
for something
asked
to
a
come
question
up.
at home, and so now it appears on your screen.
I'm going to have to read my PhD again before next Thursday.
No, I know. I'm just going to have to go through a whole bunch of things.
Let's put 3
So
questions
no,
up there.
So were people in trade considered part of polite society? No, not really. They
Well,
tried.
at this point, you wouldn't be answering that question until Adam presses select.
Okay.
Because then the viewer at home can see what the question
Which one
is.
is it?
that you're-
Okay.
Yeah.
And
then
is it
makes the
useful just
chapters.
to? We should probably
So at this point, you'd be
say
doing
the question as
introduction.
well.
Yeah.
So
Indeed,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
okay, good.
People will get the chance as well, Adam,
Yeah.
to add their vote to questions. So if you see, you can do it like +1 or whatever, and they'll come
I
up
see.
here, and you'll be able to see how many people like that question.
Then
Yeah.
once
So it
go to
might
the top
influence
one,
your.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, whichever one you want to answer next, you just click. You can click star, which will bring it to the top of, flow it to the top of the list, because there will be ones getting added all the
Yeah.
time. And if you pick out one, you go right, okay, that's great, we'll have that one, and then you click actually, whichever one you
Once you
want.
decide to start
Mm,
answering
okay.
it, then you
So,
click
do you want
select.
to do a little test?
Sure.
It's kind of a bit cronky because it's hard not to look at your own eyes.
Okay.
while
No.
you're doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
So I've put a little sticker up there. That's who.
That's
the
where we
learner.
should be looking. Okay.
That's who you need to be
Okay.
addressing. No busy patterns, crazy
Yeah,
clothes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll be sitting behind there. You'll have either Tom or Rob there. The question, you'll have a few questions here, but they'll sort of start coming steadily. So if you start off with introduction, so say you're going to unstar that one for now, because we're going to do this as practice. During your intro, then I'd pick one of those two questions to star, and then wait until it goes to the top. And then as you're sort of wrapping up that intro, then, you know, select a question, answer it, and then select the next question and answer it.
Okay.
Okay.
So we'll all be sitting behind here.
And don't be afraid to just go, I don't know. I'll have to do some research on that.
Yeah.
Back to you. Whatever. It's fine not to know the answer to the question.
Yeah.
Can I just ask at the beginning, obviously we've already started the broadcast now, but so we won't have that screen there.
No, so
Because
that
we've just done that for the purposes of having
this
some
is
questions
test.
there.
Yeah.
So what we will do
Sorry?
is we'll
Sorry, I
have
was trying to
nothing,
get into
and then
the
it will
frame.
be okay, start. And then
I noticed last year that it's quite easy when you're doing it to lean out of the
Yes,
screen as well.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
there's a lot of times where Amber and Carly are like
That's
vanishing off the
right,
side
yeah,
of the frame.
yeah.
Posted in Google Hangout
Yeah.
already.
No,
They will be there.
Of course, yeah.
And Carly can be adding ones there from the other channels.
Can I
Yeah,
give it a try
of
like
course.
adding one now then?
Yeah,
Is that
absolutely,
alright?
yeah. Are you invited to the hangout?
No.
Do you need
Not
to
yet,
invite
no.
Carly, Tom?
So you can do it on my lap because you can't ask questions from mobile devices.
Oh, I've got the laptop.
Are you already signed in on that one, Tom?
Did you
Yeah,
see that on
I'll-
Sheffield Life again this
Give
week?
it to your mind, Carly.
Yeah.
Carly, we've got
So
one.
that was Sean's idea. That's what Dave was, wasn't he? Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. So I've just been using that to talk about the MOOC as well.
we took it down to the beach one.
Yeah. I think I saw you guys all catching the train that morning.
Yeah.
I definitely saw Tom and Rob talking to someone from like a
Oh,
blind dog scientist thing.
we,
That was
Yeah.
going down to Oxford, wasn't it?
that was going to Oxford, but
Right.
we were with her. For like
You guys
20
been
minutes.
gallivanting all over the show now.
Yeah.
She just wouldn't let us go.
Robert spent his, what was it, nearly 3-week honeymoon on the Trans-Siberian Railway.
Mm.
And the day he got back, we were like, hey, welcome back. You're on the
Let's
train to
go.
Oxford."
Oh, wow.
Because you've not had enough of trains.
Gosh.
So we're just going to hold off for a minute until Carly's sorted out on this one, and then we'll give you a prompt and we'll start a little 5-minute practice.
Are
10-minute
you
practice.
logged into it now? Tom?
Yeah.
Could you just give Carly your...
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
That's what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to remember what it's called. Because I've been just bars.
It's version 16. So this is like at the university. We do this every day.
Every day, yeah.
This is just standard daily.
Quick broadcast to the world.
Was it a conference in Greece, Susan?
No, it was an exam board
Oh gosh.
and all kinds of stuff
Yeah.
going on. So it was good. It was good.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we're doing pretty well with everybody, but you know, just the conversations going on were just, you know, pretty fraught.
Yeah.
And demonstrations and lots of
Yeah,
police.
yeah.
And I mean, I was in Thessaloniki, so that's northern Greece.
I am
Beautiful, but it was
It's fine. People
not
explain,
Athens.
isn't
Yeah.
Andrew
Yeah.
Lynn was in Athens
Oh,
over
wow.
the weekend, and he just that was a little bit more hectic.
Yeah.
So
It's just
I
been
think-
constantly on who's here.
We're about to start. I was just wondering, it might be worth in your sort of hello, welcome to this video. This is and it's introduced that it's part of the course, and that it's a live hangout at the end of the week of the course. And it might be worth just saying, if you're viewing on Google Hangout and you want to ask a question, just click on the series of dots at the top corner of the camera
Top
screen
right hand corner,
Right.
yes.
and click question.
Okay. Well, how are we
That's quite
describing
a
that?
short thing to say, isn't
Yeah.
it? But that might actually.
So is it the dots or is it the question? Is it the
It's the series of dots.
Yes.
And then it says there's 2 options and it says question.
Q and A?
Question.
It says Q and A, doesn't it?
The 9 dots.
Yeah, there.
Well,
Yeah, no,
guess
I
it'll
can
be
see that.
Just to the right of your name on the.
Yes, but they don't want to click on the question mark, right? Because that's going to take them to help or something. is that right?
Exactly, yeah.
So that's the main point.
Yeah.
It's a bit confusing, you see.
So it might be worth
Question
saying
mark.
at the start of it, just like a little bit of a kind of technical thing.
Yeah.
To kind
A
of say,
technical note.
yeah, and also to say if you're watching on a mobile device,
Gosh.
you won't be able to ask questions. Like that.
Well, also you'll have to tweet if you've got a question.
Yes, it's just in there.
But please do tweet us instead.
And then put hashtag FL.
I'll remember this before we get to next week.
We just need to have probably a little script actually. Hey?
Yeah, I want to do that. Yeah.
I think otherwise, kind of saying it up front, it means people won't spend the first 10 minutes trying to learn like what our question. They're just like, okay, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's do. So basically, what will happen now then is it won't be broadcasting yet. We'll be having behind screens behind you. You'll have the top one up there, who will ask if you're ready. When you are, he will click start broadcast, and then once you're ready, and then when the hour is nearly over, you'll get a signal, which will probably be sort of to this. 5 minutes.
Okay.
And then just it all up and start and then yeah. Ready to go. Shall we do after this?
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do what it when you start testing. 3, 2, 1.
Hi, welcome to this live ECH Hangout, which is part of Literature in the House, a massive online course brilliant as you Sheffield. I'm joined today by Susan Morris, and we'll be answering your questions over the next 5 minutes. Now, if you're doing this on Google Hangout, the top left side of the screen, so go to the question. If you're watching this on mobile device, you'll be able to ask questions from the mobile device, you can tweet your questions using the hashtag FLHousLit. Okay, so Susan, would you like to introduce yourself before you
Sure. I'm Susan Morris, and I'm a professor of English language in the School of English at the University of Sheffield. And co-lead educator for this move together with Adam. Adam Smith.
I'm Adam Smith. I'm a teaching associate. I'm a research fellow here at the University of Sheffield, and also co-lead educator on the MOOC as well. And we're both 18th centuries by trade.
Yes.
And this week on the course, we've been looking at what people are reading outside of country house, and how things are travelling from sort of country coffee house culture into the coffee houses, and what our country house residents were looking at. So we've got some questions coming through. And the first question today is, was Mr. Spectator a cad or a wit or a serious political commentator? Do you want to start with that one, Susan?
Sure, why not? So Mr. Spectator is actually what's called an eidolon, or a kind of an alias of a character, usually Joseph Addison or Richard Steele or any one of their contributors to the Spectator, which is obviously, as you know, a periodical publication made up of lots of essays written through the week, and they consisted of observations, spectatorial interventions of polite society. And it's a really good question, that actually, because in some of the essays, Mr. Spectator does, well, actually he castigates cads, doesn't he? He doesn't like them very much. Is he a wit? He professes not to be a wit, but he actually is, isn't he? He's pretty funny. Is he a serious political commentator? I'd say not. What would you say?
Well, that's a really good question, because he actually says, I think it's in the first issue, that he's going to observe an exact neutrality between the Whigs and the Tories,
yes.
Which are the two political parties at the time. And I actually think that makes him profoundly subversive. Because if someone tells you they're not going to be political, you're not expecting it. But generally speaking, I think he does observe that rule. I always, whenever I talk about this with students, I try and think of a modern example of an eidolon.
Yeah.
So this is a character who's a fictional character who's narrating a real periodical that people
Sure. Yeah.
And I can never think of any other than Alan Partridge.
Oh, right. Yeah, Alan Partridge is probably quite a good example, actually, isn't it? Because it's a persona. Right? It's a persona.
Yeah.
LEG.
LEG.
It's a bit ancient, I guess.
Yeah.
But that would work.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the thing about the political commentator question, of course, that we need to think about too, is that the Spectator is one of a number of periodicals that Joseph Addison in particular is involved with. And of course, when we get to something like The Guardian, which has no relation to The Guardian newspaper today, but he ran a periodical called The Guardian, and The Freeholder, which you're particularly fond of. And in those, he is much more overtly Whiggish and political, and he's very much for money and trade and the city and so on, isn't he?
Very much,
So there are aspects of the Spectator which I suppose leak that political commentating from time to time.
And I think that's the Freeholders paper I worked a lot on, and one of the interesting things about that is how it's sort of forgotten or left out of commentaries or biographies of Addison. I think because he's being too political in that one, so he's being more a Whiggish Addison than he is the fictional neutral Mr. Spectator, and I don't think 19th century commentators could make that fit with the story they wanted to tell.
Well, that's true, but we've also talked about the fact that 18th century print culture is also hard, isn't it, for the present day reader? And why is it hard? Well, because it is so rooted in the everyday. And the everyday is a foreign country as far as we're concerned. We recognize streets, we recognize names, but we don't know about some of those particular historical events that are going on, the actual debates that are really getting people upset. So the Freeholder, because it's so political, is also much harder to read for a modern audience, don't you think?
Definitely. It's extraordinarily topical. I mean, this thing's coming out 2 times a week, and it's about what happened since the last issue. So, absolutely.
Should we go for the next?
So
that's the next one.
Question then is.
So I think it's pressed done.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I think that one's done.
Okay.
Were people in trade considered part of polite society?
Okay, I'll have to say no at the beginning of the century, because of course we know that politeness undergoes lots of different changes of meaning and interpretation over the course, 17th, 18th, 19th century. By the beginning of the 18th century, and we're really thinking here about Shaftesbury, philosopher, gentleman, aristocrat, and he associated politeness with good breeding, which is kind of, we don't really like that kind of thing these days. But he associates it with good breeding and therefore the aristocracy and education, and that essentially suggested that you were either born polite or you weren't. So in the early part of the 18th century, no, if you were in trade, commerce, manufacturing, you couldn't be polite. But by the middle of the century, and certainly by the end of the century, it was possible. You could make polite. You could learn to be polite. You could acquire it through education, by marrying up, by I suppose acquiring good language skills and things like that, right? And actually good manners. And that's really in the end, by the second half of the 18th century, we find that politeness is associated with good manners rather than with general sociability or good bearing or good breeding, that kind of thing.
So do you think there's to an extent, as the 18th century progresses, there's more of an idea that you can learn politeness? I mean, because these conduct books start to appear, don't they? And
absolutely.
So there's it's a nice little pocket industry in how to teach people to be polite.
But the funny thing is that politeness holds all of its meanings, because the late 17th century literature continues to be read right up until the 19th century. And so we have this thing, which I'm going to introduce a term called contingent polysemy. Okay, so a term actually means multiple things. But actually, a particular meaning is going to, if you like, come to the forefront depending on where you are, how you're situated. So that if you are, as we will see next week, if you're in Jane Austen's world, as opposed to Addison's world, politeness does mean manners, but they will also recognize the historical meaning of the association with good breeding. Okay, but the primary meaning there will be about manners. So
that's a really crucial point to flag up for our learners for next week as well. That we're dealing with a term that changes, but also retains some kind of residual meaning. Excellent. Our next question then is from Mr. Spectator himself, and he says, "What can 18th century coffee houses tell us about the culture of politeness at the time?"
Come on, I think this is yours.
Well, I think the 18th century coffee houses can teach us a lot about life in the 18th century.
Oh yeah.
Just as you click that.
That star thing, I guess it just means it's like a reference for you that you like
The star thing,
movies.
this
thing brings it to the top.
So if there's when there's lots
But
of questions
does it?
there,
It hasn't been
when
written
there's
up.
like a big list of questions and you want to choose some while Susan's talking, that's when
then-
you'd use the star thing to bring
Okay.
them to the top, and then you
Okay.
can sort of, as they're there, you can choose from the
Because
starred
when you've
ones
got
to
more
click
than
live.
10,
Do you see what I mean?
it's
So
Yeah, it's going to get very crowded,
So the
isn't it?
star, all the
Keeps those
stars
at the
do.
top
I'll
while
keep,
you're-
yeah.
Mm.
You scroll through
Yeah,
the bottom one.
Do
Okay.
you understand that, Adam?
Yes, yeah.
cool.
If you click on the little arrow, the down arrow, not there,
This
the
one?
next
Oh.
on the question,
Oh yeah.
you should be able to get rid of the question.
Okay.
So if there's
Loads, and
because
because you see this one, we will all. I mean, we happen to have answered that one, so you know,
Yeah.
you know, so we would probably get rid of that one.
or if someone's asked something that's like, completely inappropriate.
Right,
Yeah.
we will just not.
take that
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
So,
So we're just going to have to
Or if
keep an
someone's
eye on
like,
it.
Why can't I get it to work? Or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can delete those.
Yes. Okay.
But don't delete any question that's just anything.
No,
just
no, no,
ones you don't
yeah.
want to answer because the person who asked it will be there going,
Well,
what?
yeah,
why,
yeah.
why did you do that? But
Yeah.
I mean, if it is like, if it is trolley,
Yeah. Okay. Right.
it's
Okay.
already answered, but forgotten to,
Okay.
to do.
So does that seem
Yeah. That seems
Okay.
so we can do that.
Okay, so
I mean,
if you just answer one more question, and then we'll do the wrap up. So at some point, Tom, can you give a 5-minute warning?
A pretend one.
And
what is she
wrap it
giggling
up?
about?
Shall I make it?
Just do some mock trolling.
Oh,
Oh,
Right.
cheers.
So if you carry on, Adam, just answer one more question, and then you'll get a wrap up signal from Tom.
Okay, so Mr. Spectator says, what can 18th century coffee houses tell us about the culture of politeness at the time? Everything. I think.
absolutely. Yeah.
So I think we're going to draw it to a close there.
Yeah.
But thanks everyone for tuning in and asking all of the questions.
Yeah.
This is the end of our Hangout. Of course, Literature of the English Country House continues on the Future Learn platform. If you want to find out more information, you can click the information below this video. And you can sign up at any time. For our returning learners next week, we'll be entering the world of Jane Austen. And I'll be joined at the end of next week by Dr. Joe Bray, and I'll be posing to him your most common asked questions then as well.
So shall we just end off by saying, continue to pay attention to politeness. It will stand you in good stead. And when you have a few moments, go back to the Spectator and just enjoy it.
Yeah.
All right. Cheerio.
Thanks very much. Good night.
Okay. Bye.
Or good morning. If
Good
you're watching in
morning.
Australia.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then what happens is, would you
We'll just press
and
stop broadcast.
always
Yeah.
Adam doing that? Yeah. Okay.